How's it going, guys? My name is Zach with the Movie Castle, and today we're going to be taking a look at Freddy's Nightmares. This is Season 1, Episode 9, and this one's entitled Rebel Without a Car. It originally aired December 11th, 1988, and was directed by John Lafia, who you guys may know as the director of Child's Play 2. Yeah, Freddy's Nightmares really does have some fun IMDb connections, doesn't it? This episode stars Katie Barberi, Craig Hurley, Denise Loveday, and of course, Robert Englund as Freddy Krueger, our host. Now, all that being said, this episode is okay, but really just kind of underwhelming. The first half of the story is about this outcast kid who starts to become obsessed with fixing a car, but turns out the car's haunted. Okay, look, it's a little hard to ignore. This is basically just Christine again. I actually just recently covered that movie on my channel, and here we are just doing it on Freddy's Nightmares, but a much cheaper, much shorter version of it. And then the second half is about a girl going through Hell Week at a sorority, and the sorority just being terrible to her. Yeah, I'm not really a big fan of fraternity, sorority stuff, and this is just, hey, let's watch these girls be mean for half an hour. Yeah, I wasn't the biggest fan of that one either. But strangely, both stories share the same two flaws, and first of the two big flaws is this is a character study episode where I don't really feel like I know these characters. So much of the time in this episode is spent talking, and the talking is just like generic stuff about, oh, what will I do when we go off to college? But I don't really feel like I know them as people. It feels like we're talking about stock drama and spending a lot of our time doing that. Which leads me into my second big criticism for this episode. There's not enough horror in this one. Like, when you look at the first segment, you're doing a haunted car, you're doing like Christine. You know what Christine did? Christine killed people. In this episode, most of it is just, I see a ghost in my haunted car, it's the ghost of the former owner, oh, that's kinda scary. Okay, cool, but can we actually have not Christine kill people or something? Yeah, there's not that much horror. And then when we get to the sorority segment, it's mostly just the beginning of Cinderella, it's mostly just these girls being cruel. And then at the very end, there's a horror section, and the horror section is dark and it leads to this really cool bit of revenge towards the end. And I like the horror section. The only problem is it's like 5 minutes towards the very end of the episode. And I'm like, why did we bottle all this and just keep a little bit at the end? This should have been what the whole thing was about. But no, we're just gonna watch these sorority girls be cruel for like way too long, and it gets to be super annoying. So overall, yeah, it's a character study where I felt like I didn't know the characters. The horror was a little bit too light, and the first half is just Christine again. That's not really great. Overall, it wasn't terrible. Like, a lot of the Freddy's Nightmares episodes can just be random jump scares that don't really amount to anything. It's not that. I do appreciate that each story has a focus and a train of thought. It was just underwhelming. So yeah, not a huge fan of this one. But I guess in order to explain that further, let's talk about each of the episodes. I'm not gonna do any major spoilers, but I do want to break down and analyze some plot points and try to explain why this doesn't really work. So from here on out, let's take a bit of a deeper dive. We open up in story 1 with this guy who's working at the Beefy Boy, which was the same hamburger stand as from episode 2 of this series, It's a Terrible Life. And they even reference the events of that story, so cool to have a bit of continuity. We get him talking to his friend, and his friend says, you need to be more serious, get ready for college, understand finances. And he says, I don't know if I'm cut out for that, I really just want to work on cars. so we kind of establish his character. He doesn't get all this big adult stuff, but he wants to have a mission that he can work on and that he can understand, and he just feels like it's his place in the world. We also get to meet a few other characters. The head of a car club comes in, and he's going to be the bully teenager that kind of puts him down a little bit. And then we also meet the guy's girlfriend, and the girlfriend has her own car. She takes them out on a drive, and they start to talk about their future. She was hoping that he would go to college with her, but he didn't apply to any colleges, and they start to have the idea that maybe they'll live together, but he'll just be working at a garage or something, and she worries about what her mother would think about that. Well, after driving a bit, he says, "Hey, stop," because he sees a car that's run off the road, and he says, "It may look old and run down, but I'm going to take it home and fix it up, and then I'll finally have a car." Which, yeah, boy, didn't the world in the 80s work different, back when you could just find a car and keep it. Yeah, nowadays there'd be a mess of paperwork, and I guarantee you wouldn't be able to do something like that. Well, he puts it in his garage, and we do get a bit of a time jump, and it's mainly fixed up by this point. And the dad simply comes in and says, "You haven't been going to school, you've been working too hard to afford to fix this thing up, and you haven't seen your girlfriend in a while." So yeah, instead of actually getting gradual character changes, we just do a time jump and then have a character say what's changed. And it doesn't really seem to matter too much. I mean, to get his girlfriend back, he just pulls up in the car and literally picks her up and carries her away. So much for that problem. That's an easy fix. And that really is a flaw in the character study. I mean, look at the Christine version of this plot. You gotta see the guy go from a nerd into being someone who's like gruff and working with his hands, and you really gotta see him push his friends away. But in this, the friend problem is fixed relatively instantly, and he was already someone who wanted to work with his hands, so we don't really get a big character change. And really the biggest character change is he says, "Don't go to college. I've suddenly decided I don't want to be in Springwood anymore and I want to go to California." And it really does feel like a random whim that he's gotten. Hey, I just decided I want to go all the way over here now. I guess he was supposed to like hate being in Springwood, but I never really got that he felt trapped, and it just feels like a light switch that's flicked and now he has a completely different motivation. Cool. We also get one of his friends saying, "Oh hey, nice car. Didn't you hear about the guy who died in that car?" And we'll get the littlest bit of lore. Again, learning about the Christine lore, there was stuff there. There was stuff to dig into. Christine had a history. Here, you basically just get the former owner of the car popping up as a ghost and scaring you every now and then, and maybe you'll get a dream sequence or two. It's not really that big, it's not really that super in depth. They build up to a race like, oh, I'm gonna race the head of the local car club, and let me just say, it amounts to basically nothing, and this episode wraps up super quickly. Yeah, it's just too close to Christine, and it's not done near as well. Not enough scares and not a great character study. It just kinda came off a little flat. But after that, we jump forward in time to our second story, and we get the guy's girlfriend trying to join a sorority. And she goes into the sorority, and they basically openly mock her for being poor, and they say, "Oh, I don't know if you're fit to be one of us." And then we get a scene where she's with her friend talking about the events of part 1, and then talking about how she thinks maybe she has a chance, and surely they don't discriminate based on wealth. Which of course they do. Yeah, she seems to have this idea in her head that sororities are all about going in there, making friends, and having a fun and innocent time. Not that sororities are about gatekeeping success and only hiring your friends in a small selected group. How are sororities and fraternities still a thing? I don't know. Well, we then cut to the sorority girls, and they're talking with the older woman who is in charge of the whole thing, and it turns out the sorority has a bit of financial stress, and they can't afford the cook and they can't afford the maid anymore, so you girls are going to have to do your own cooking and cleaning unless you can figure something else out. Naturally, their minds turn back to that poor kid that tried to apply and say, hey, let's bring her on, and as part of her Hell Week hazing, we'll have her just do all the cooking and cleaning for us, and then we get a montage of them being terrible people to this girl who just is so determined to be part of the sorority. And that goes on for a long time. I hope you're on board for that. But after a while, they're going to try to get her to leave because they don't want her to actually be a sorority sister. And if she passes Hell Week, then she gets to be part of the club. And they're going to try to scrape her off in a really dark manner. And first off, the thing that really gets me is what the heck was their plan even? I mean, I thought they wanted to get this girl on, but then like keep her in a position of servitude. But no, they want to push her away. The only problem is if you push her away, who's going to do the cooking and cleaning? Wasn't that the whole point of this episode? What, did they just need 1 week's worth of cooking and cleaning, and then they're never gonna need to eat again and the house will never get messy again? Are they gonna keep looping people in, constantly bringing in new girls and then kicking them out again? That seems like a ton of effort. So yeah, apparently all they cared about was having 1 week's worth of food and cleaning, and then they just are so incredibly short-sighted they don't see how week 2 is going to be a problem? Okay, that's dumb. That's the driving point of the whole episode, and it's a stupid plan. But whatever. After we sit through all this abuse, we finally get to the horror section of the story. I won't say what it is, but they have a plan. Something they want to try to get her to do that they think surely will be too far, and she'll surely give up on this dream of being one of us if we try to get her to do it. Again, it's a very dark idea, and that pushes us into a horror segment where after she comes back from this mission, things are definitely changed, and we finally become a horror story. The little bit of time we have left in this episode is actually good. It's just such a shame that we put it off till the end. You know, the actual point of this episode, the actual horror of the horror story, is all bottlenecked right there at the end, and most of this episode is just watching sorority girls be terrible people for way too long. Yeah, if you were doing this as a movie, you know, yeah, save stuff for the climax, right? You got time. But you're only 1/2 of an hour-long TV time block. You don't have time to wait. Get to the good stuff because you're only here for like 22 or so minutes. If the end section of the episode happened way sooner, this would be a good segment. It would come off really well. But as it stands, it's just bottlenecking the horror for no good reason, and most of this episode is just sorority girls being evil. And that's it. So yeah, overall, this episode wasn't the best. A character study where I don't really know the characters, underdeveloped horror, and again, the first half is just way too close to the movie Christine. Not my favorite episode. Again, it's not just Freddy's nightmares being random jump scares that are all a dream like some of them are, but really this one's nothing to write home about, so not really a recommendation from me. Anyway though, to everyone who's watched so far, thank you for watching. To everyone who's liked and subscribed, thank you. You really are helping the channel out. I'll leave a relevant playlist on the bottom. This should be my Freddy's Nightmares playlist. If you guys want to see me talk about past episodes of the show, feel free to click right here and see more. Anyway, have a good day. I'll see you guys again very soon. Playlist here. Have a good day now.